It's a real pleasure to be here today, and I certainly have been very energized by all the conversations we've had this morning, and just hearing about the information, the projects, the challenges, everything that you're doing to promote immigrant integration in Greenville, Charlotte, High Point, and Greensboro. I happen to have worked with UNCG for over 3 years to coordinate an AmeriCorps-led health literacy immigrant integration initiative, and have a lot of experiences that I know were echoed in this room during this morning's conversation. And I'm really delighted to be here. I'm a Cameroonian by birth and an American by choice, and I guess that makes me a first-generation immigrant. This is Welcoming Week, and thanks to the vision of Welcoming America, we have over 40 cities and counties across America that are supporting locally driven efforts to promote immigrant-friendly communities. And this work is absolutely critical, as all of you know, because there are still so many communities all across America, especially in my own home state in Pennsylvania, where the notion of welcoming new Americans has yet to penetrate the collective consciousness of many long-term residents. And we must. It's not a nice to do. We must continue to welcome newcomers to our shores. This is what makes us unique as a nation of immigrants. But while we continue to do this, and we should continue to do this, we must not equate welcoming for integration. For based on my personal experience as an immigrant, which I will share with you a few experiences, these could be two distinct realities. I am here to talk with you today about the long and winding road to integration. It's a story that began in a northwestern town in Washington State. The year was 1997. An apple-growing town, white majority. The only people who were there that constituted any ounce of minority or immigrants were the Mexicans who came to pick apples. As I rode my bike down the steep hill, hoping to make the 25-minute ride to a meeting downtown, just in time before my eyelids began to show signs of frost because it was a cold November morning, all I could think about were the challenges, the frustrations, and the feelings of depression that had succumbed me. I had just arrived at this town a mere 2 months ago then. What were the chances, I thought? I had been invited to this meeting. When I first arrived at this town, I was welcomed by comments like, "Welcome to civilization." "Why are you black?" "How was life like living in a cave?" These experiences were very challenging, to say the least. I could easily and justifiably withdrawn from society and make room for depression. But I refused to pursue this cause, this direction, because of the words of a Peace Corps volunteer, a white Peace Corps volunteer, who after graduating from college in Texas came to my little town to teach math. And she would always tell me, "Patience, America is the land of opportunity and freedom, where hard-working people strive to pursue their individual goals, but often with a sense of the bond they all share as one American family." She was my math teacher. She would invite me after school for homework help. And I was thrilled to be in her presence. She was warm, she was compassionate, she was everything that was good about America. These homework help sessions quickly turned into long question and answer sessions to feed my curiosity about America as a little girl. And I would ask her questions about how life is like in America, what food people ate, the music, and sometimes even the politics. And she would share everything with me, including family pictures of her growing up. And we will attempt to make spaghetti and meatballs, even though it was so hard to get ground beef in my country, my little village, but we will still try. The America she showed me, she represented a window into a world I could only dream about. In my little remote West African village, she showed me a world where girls could go to school, and the education of girls was recognized as something very important, unlike in my little village where I grew up, and where parents who decided to send their daughters to school were not shunned from society, as was the case with my father. I have come to think about her in so many ways, but suffice it to say that to me, she represented the milk of human kindness. She showed me an America that I longed to see. But unfortunately, in this little northwestern town where I now settled, several years later, that was not the America I was experiencing. I was determined, however, to find that America and to find people in this town that were like her. Miss Tia was her name. So I reached out amidst feelings of rejection to the chair of the Kiwanis Club, a group of elite members in this all-white community that met monthly to discuss the state of business and the economic state of affairs in this town. And I asked the chair if I could be invited to attend these meetings, at least introduce myself, and shared with members of this group why I would appreciate an opportunity to get a job and contribute to this town. Because I had really applied for several jobs and no one would hire me. All I kept hearing repeatedly was, have you tried picking apples? Now I came here with the ability to speak English and a bachelor's degree, and I certainly wasn't looking forward to picking apples. I was under no illusion, though, that my request to meet with this group would be granted. I was certainly pleased when I received a call asking that I could come to the meeting. I only had 5 minutes before the meeting adjourned, and I had to state my case. I did. Right after the meeting, the elementary school principal, Mrs. Sadler, called me, pulled me to the side and said, Patience, would you consider volunteering at the school as a volunteer teacher's assistant? I said yes. I agreed and started the very next day. She made sure she was cleared with me that this is an unpaid position. I said yes, I would do it. I only wanted a chance. I wanted people to realize that I wasn't here for a handout, that I was here to contribute to this country, that I wasn't only attracted by the economic opportunities of America, but I also shared in the values that represent this great nation. I committed myself to volunteering every day. I rode my bike down to school and rode home. And a few weeks later, she called me to her office and said, Patience, I've been hearing so many good things about you. I'm impressed. Would you consider completing an application for a substitute teaching position? I agreed. I was delighted. I thought of the possibility of finally earning a paycheck. With her help, I completed the application and we submitted it to the school superintendent. And I waited anxiously for a response. Several weeks later, I got a call from her. I could tell in her voice that it wasn't good news. She said, I'm sorry, Patience. The superintendent has rejected your application on the basis that you are not sufficiently familiar with the educational system of America to serve as a substitute teacher with the school district. I was devastated. But I settled in and kept volunteering from K through 12, doing everything that anyone needed me to do. I wasn't getting paid, but I kept doing it. And a month later, she called me to her office. And she said, Patience, I've continued to hear good things about you. I am absolutely impressed by your level of dedication and loyalty as a volunteer. And I want to tell you that I made a decision to forward your application to the state capitol against the superintendent's wishes. I want to do everything in my power to help you get a paid position. Tears ran down my eyes as the words poured out of my mouth. All I could do was thank her. I remember giving her a hug and loosely uttered the words, God bless you. She was a reflection of the peaceful volunteer that I was looking for. And a few weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail with a stamped letter. The words written in bold, substitute teacher certificate. I was overjoyed. I ran behind the house into a trailer that was owned by my in-laws where I could scream freely and express my joy. My husband quickly joined me and his eyes grew bigger as he read the letter. And I thought, finally, I can start earning a paycheck. The letter was complete with how much I would get paid as a substitute teacher. I was excited. I could now pay for my own burgers, I thought. And even order a 20-piece chicken McNugget as opposed to the 4-piece I had been accustomed to. Little did I know that all of this would come at a very high price. The superintendent found out that I was now a substitute teacher, and that the school principal, Mrs. Sadler, had forwarded my application to the state capitol and had been approved. As a consequence, the school principal was fired. I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. But I continued to substitute. I started making friends. I started connecting with the students and the teachers and the broader community. And I started getting to know people even at a deeper level in this community. Everywhere I would go, parents would come up to me and say, Patience, thank you. We hear so much about you from our kids. Thanks for teaching them how to connect and appreciate people from other parts of the world. This community that was once alienated from me slowly began to rally around me, and I around them. This was finally the America I had dreamed about. And so it was bittersweet when I had to leave. My husband and I had to travel to Philadelphia for graduate studies. And we settled in a suburban town an hour away from the city, both commuting to school and work. My new community was a sharp opposite of the community I came from in this northwestern town. The moment we moved into this neighborhood, everyone came to welcome us. They brought us gifts, they helped us, they showed us in so many ways how we could be comfortable. They connected us to resources, they were extremely welcoming. We were delighted. I thought, finally, a community that values me and recognizes that I am not this weird outsider. I was highly encouraged by my experience in Washington State, and I decided I would continue to explore ways to engage with long-term residents. I started volunteering whenever I had a chance, at the school system, in the churches, at community events, on election day, door-knocking campaign, phone booths, whatever was needed. If I had the ability or the time, I would do it. Sometimes I even took my vacation day to do it, because I believed that I didn't want to be a passive member in the community. I wanted to actively engage with the residents of this community, because I have seen firsthand in Washington State what that kind of engagement can result into. And so we've lived in this town for about 11 years. 2 years ago, I decided to run for school board. I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. They're in the school system, and I thought, that's one of the best ways to get involved. And so I did what everyone else does. Running for school board, I got my signatures, I put the word out, I let everyone know, I made announcements at churches, I put out flyers. I took my kids out to knock on doors and to kind of talk to people about who I am and what I stand for, my message platform, so to speak. I was really enjoying the process, to be honest with you. And so on November 5th, 2013, election day, I was ready. I went to the polling station, I set up my table at 6 a.m. in the morning, I put out my materials. I took the day off from work. I was decided to greet every voter that walked through the polling station and asked for a vote. And I braced for the long day ahead. And exactly that's what happened. As people would walk in, I would go up to them, I would greet them, I would welcome them, I would introduce myself and ask if they would vote for me. Some people were very gracious and they wished me luck, and others said, oh, were you the one who circulated a flyer? Yeah, we like the message. While others were not very courteous. They looked at me in the eye, they looked at the ballot sheet, seemed to make sure they wanted to confirm who they really wanted to vote for. Throughout the day, all of a sudden, I was confronted from behind. I heard this screaming in my direction. Wasn't sure it was directed toward me as I turned to look at this lady who was up in age, in her senior years. She was screaming. The anger in her voice could only match the tension in her face. And she said, go back to where you come from. You don't belong here. This is not your community. Go and meet your president. You are all a bunch of filthy abortionists, socialists. You don't belong in our community. You are a cancer. I was stunned. I never would have expected that. Something rose up from inside me and I thought to respond to her, but then luckily I thought otherwise. I said, no, Patience, do nothing. Just let her be. This is an isolated case. And so I didn't respond to her. I kept on doing what I was doing. And she slowly walked away. I could see her screaming and yelling at me as she drove off. Well, as if that wasn't enough, 2 more voters confronted me, almost uttering to the exact same word. There was a recurring theme here. You don't belong. You are a cancer. Go back to where you come from. I thought, as long as I wasn't getting physically hurt or endangered, I would just keep doing what I was doing. And that's what I did. My last attacker, though, was a retired county judge. He walked in, and as I went up to greet him, it was as though I was invisible. He immediately walked past me, went to speak with a sitting judge who was running for re-election. And he turned and looked in my direction and he said, "What's that?" Pointed at me. "Do I have to start going west now? What's that doing here? I thought we contained that cancer in this city. They've destroyed our city. Now they are moving towards in our communities to destroy our communities too." I felt like I was in a trance. My body was transfixed. As if the words, the venom oozing out of his mouth had immediately caused me to go into a trance. I was watching this as if it wasn't happening to me. It was. Now, what was even more surprising, however, were the words of response from the judge running for re-election. He turned to him and said, "Bill, America is changing. We are quickly becoming the minority. Have you heard about the browning of America? Deal with it, Bill. Learn to embrace change. You can't keep running west. You'll find the same reality wherever you go. Sometimes change can be good, you know. That wasn't what Bill wanted to hear. So he hurried him into the voting station and disappeared. Meanwhile, the judge running for re-election came over to me to apologize. And he said, "Patience, I appreciate the way you maintain your composure. I've been watching you. I'm so sorry because there's still so many people in our community like this. Keep on doing what you're doing." I was grateful for the support and encouragement and decided to focus on greeting people and speaking to those voters who were willing to listen to me. And I would stay at the polling station until about 9 o'clock in the evening when the polls closed. But as I went home and as the vote counts came in, I knew that I wasn't elected. But nonetheless, I was very grateful that I had an opportunity to participate in what we call a democratic process. And to teach my kids a lesson that they had to stand for what they believe in, even when the cards are stacked against them. I've never seen my community the same way again. This welcoming community that embraced me, that showed me love at first sight, was forever changed in my mind. So as Hannah reached out to me and said, you're having this conference today, and that I should think about, as an immigrant who experiences this as a personal level, and someone who has led a national initiative for the last 6 years to promote immigrant integration across 16 states in the country, to share with you my reflections on the journey. And so I have this to share with you. November 5th, 2013 taught me more lessons than all the money I've paid for graduate education to date. I learned that welcoming is the process by which newcomers come into a community. But integration is the process by which newcomers move up in a community and assume leadership positions in all levels of the community. When Maria talked about sharing power, it is about recognizing that access to wealth and power in America is still controlled by the social networks and cultural norms of the white majority in many instances. I learned that I could be welcomed as long as I can stay in my place and obey the rules and not make a fuss and not express any desire to gain access to power. For if I do, that power will rise up to destroy me. I learned that to welcome someone, to simply welcome someone, is to designate that person as a permanent guest. What happens if I visit you and I'm a guest in your house? You welcome me, but I am a guest, and I will remain a guest. Because what we do is we establish a living arrangement based on a senior and a junior partnership. I learned that welcoming, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, and I love how Al, in facilitating and moderating the sessions, talk about not forgetting to include communities of African American descent in the projects and the discussion of integration. I learned that welcoming, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, leads to physical proximity without spiritual affinity. It gives us a society where elbows are together but hearts are apart.